Alrighty, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the Texas Broadband Development Office in the third of 8 webinars that will detail the subgrantee selection process for the Texas Broadband Equity Access and Deployment, or BEAD program. I am Erin Bennell, Senior Broadband Program Coordinator here at the BDO, and throughout the presentation, I will be joined by John Wilkins, a member of our team helping to implement the program. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please submit them in the chat. We will be sure to answer all submitted questions at the end of the presentation. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and posted on the BDO website for future use. In this presentation, we will be talking through the pre-registration process, why one might choose to participate in pre-registration, as well as the required components for pre-registration. Finally, the BDO will be providing a preview of the portal for applicants to start getting familiar with the system. First, as a refresher, we will provide an overview of the BEAD program. Funded by the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the BEAD program is a $42 billion federally funded program aiming to connect all Americans online. Texas was allocated $3.3 billion in BEAD funding to achieve 3 goals. 1, achieve universal broadband access and quality service. 2, augment deployment projects by increasing broadband subscribership through affordability and adoption strategies. 3, design, build, and run an efficient, compliant, and competitive grant program. The vision for Texas's BEAD program is to improve quality of life and promote economic growth by enabling fast, reliable, and affordable broadband connectivity for all residents and businesses of Texas. The Texas BEAD program is a multi-year program with several detailed steps. As of today, the BDO has received approval of its initial proposal, volumes 1 and 2, and are available on the BDO website for review. The BDO has also completed steps for the BEAD challenge process and working to finalize the list of eligible locations. The focus of this webinar series is on the subgrantee selection process, which is planned to begin in spring 2025. The subgrantee selection process can be broken down into several steps, beginning with pre-registration through the final analysis and public comment. Today's webinar is on the pre-registration process. Previous webinars include an overview of the full BEAD program and the process to further define project area units, or PAUs. The BDO is actively accepting responses on PAU subdivision until March 20th at 2 p.m. For more information on that, please visit the BDO website. We will have further webinars in the coming weeks to cover other various parts of the subgrantee selection process. Now that we have reviewed the BEAD program, let's dive into pre-registration. There are 3 primary sections to the subgrantee application, which are referred to as Forms 1, 2, and 3. Pre-registration is made up of Forms 1 and 2 and will be our focus for the day. Applicants will only be required to submit Forms 1 and 2 once, no matter how many project proposals are submitted. Form 1 consists of applicant registration information, including administrative details. Form 2 covers the necessary certifications and qualifications that make an applicant eligible for BEAD funding. Form 2 includes information to validate an applicant's financial, operational, and managerial capabilities. Form 2 will be used to ensure that applicants meet the requirements outlined in the BEAD NOFO, Texas Initial Proposal Volume 2, and Texas state law. Form 3 will be released later on in the process and focuses on project-specific information. This includes project narrative, budget, milestones, specific project area units to be served, and the funding amount requested. More information about Form 3 will be provided in subsequent webinars. Pre-registration is the period of time before the release of the BEAD NOFA and Round 1 submission deadline, during which applicants are encouraged to submit preliminary qualification and certification materials. The submitted qualification materials act as gating criteria. If an applicant does not meet the requirements in this part of the application, they are not eligible to be awarded a subgrant. Additionally, applicants will need to complete and submit Forms 1 and 2 before being granted access to Form 3 following the release of the NOFA. Pre-registration is an opportunity for applicants to complete a necessary step for applying for funds early on, so they can focus their time on developing project materials that will be required with Form 3. Now on to timelines. The BDO will be offering an initial pre-registration period from March 17th through April 4th. Registration forms submitted during this time will be eligible for one round of feedback and curing from the BDO through the Texas BEAD application portal. Applicants who missed the April 4th deadline will still be able to submit their Forms 1 and 2 before the release of the Texas BEAD NOFA. However, forms submitted from April 5th through May 14th are not guaranteed feedback from the BDO. Pre-registration will end on May 15th when the completion of Forms 1 and 2 becomes part of the open application period. Forms 1 and 2 submitted on or after May 15th will not be eligible for curing at all. Participation in the pre-registration period is completely optional. Not participating in pre-registration will not affect eligibility for participation in the subgrantee selection process. However, Forms 1 and 2 must be submitted before accessing Form 3. Now let's talk a little bit about the contents of Forms 1 and 2. As mentioned before, Forms 1 and 2 require information on an applicant's qualifications and are eligible for pre-registration. Form 3 will be submitted for each proposed project area. An applicant can submit multiple Form 3s. Forms 1 and 2 are not scored or evaluated, but rather used as gating criteria. We will be providing an overview of these forms today. However, additional information will be available in the Application and Resource Guide, which can be found on the application portal landing page. The BDO will provide an overview of these forms today, but additional information and guidance will be outlined in the Application and Resource Guide on that application portal. Form 1, as stated before, will cover the administrative details and is completed once per applicant, including an applicant applying on behalf of a consortium or partnership. Some of this information is required to create a profile for the application portal and may be submitted during the challenge process. If an applicant registered for the BEAD challenge process, all necessary information will auto-populate into Form 1 once you log in. On Form 1, applicants should be prepared with the information listed on the screen. Throughout the application portal and the resource guide, applicants will be provided guidance on what these numbers and IDs are, as well as where to locate them. And I do want to pause and see if, John, you had any additional feedback about applying as a consortium.
Yeah, I was going to jump in, Aaron, but maybe do Form 2 as well, and then I'll sort of talk about both Form 1 and Form 2 for consortiums. But why don't we do that next slide real quick, and then I'll jump in.
Absolutely. Form 2 covers the qualifications and certifications required to be eligible for BEAD funding. Questions provided in Form 2 will ensure the applicants meet the gating criteria across a variety of capabilities, including managerial, operational, and financial. Applicants will also certify compliance with laws, requirements for publicly funded projects, the BEAD NOFO, and state requirements. And once again, additional details on these qualifications can be found in the Texas Initial Proposal Volume 2, and guidance can be found in the Application and Resource Guide.
Okay, so I'll jump in for a second, Aaron, let you catch your breath. First, just an overall point that Aaron has touched on, but it's worth emphasizing. Even though pre-registration is not required, you're allowed to go ahead and proceed through the rest of the application process once you submit your Form 1 and Form 2. We really strongly encourage applicants to take advantage of the early window. So as Aaron just covered, between the 17th and the 4th of April, you're guaranteed to get some curing feedback if there are questions. Between the 5th of April and the 14th of May, you may or you may not. And after the 14th of May, you will not get any feedback. Texas has actually very strict rules about fairness, and therefore there will be no communication with applicants once that official Form 3 May 15th window opens. So please keep that in mind. And then as Aaron mentioned, one thing we did want to highlight, obviously Texas is trying to take advantage of what some earlier states have learned going through a similar process. We're aware that there's a likelihood that there will be various consortium style applications. Texas is a large state. We're aware this is happening in other states. Consortia applications are definitely permitted. They're encouraged to the extent they bring more participation in the program. But please keep in mind that the Form 2 and even Form 1 for a consortia, especially if it's some sort of a new entity that's been formed, sometimes has complexity to it. And so we would especially strongly encourage that if you are thinking of a consortia style application, which really is anything other than a single entity, so even just two entities that are working together, or certainly more than two, we really strongly encourage you to take advantage of ideally this pre-April 4th feedback window, because we have certainly heard from other states that often there are unforeseen questions that might come up. I mean, for example, in the Form 2, financial capability, how is that reported from multiple participants in a consortium? So we would just strongly encourage that early window, especially for anyone that's doing a more complex structure like a consortium.
Thanks, John. Before we get a closer look at Forms 1 and 2, I do want to provide a few examples. It's not a comprehensive list of what applicants should view once they access the application portal to see all required components. Starting with administrative details, if applying as a consortium or partnership, the applicant will need to provide additional information, including the structures and roles of the partnership. Applicants will be asked to upload a file detailing the organization's ownership information in line with the Code of Federal Regulations, which mandates the disclosure of direct and indirect ownership interests. To demonstrate managerial capability, applicants must identify key personnel and upload resumes to demonstrate relevant experience, as well as provide a narrative describing your managerial readiness. For operational capability, applicants should be prepared to share details about their years in business, number of subscribers served within and outside of Texas, and certify your ability to meet reporting requirements. To demonstrate financial capability, applicants must certify their organization has and will continue to have sufficient financial capacity to cover project costs, and provide audited financial statements from the prior fiscal year. If you do not have these audited financial statements, you must submit unaudited financial statements from the prior fiscal year and certify you will provide these audited statements within 60 days of a provisional notice of award if selected for a grant. For compliance with laws, we ask for details on any litigation and penalties, history, as well as plans to meet workforce standards and labor laws. There are additional requirements included with the BEAD NOFO, as well as requirements set by the state of Texas, which includes plans to comply with the environmental and historical preservation requirements as laid out in the National Environmental Policy Act and the National Historic Preservation Act, plans for minimizing waste, fraud, and abuse of funds, and a detailed plan to establish feasible timelines and procedures for installations. Finally, there are statements of agreement, which include adhering to data reporting requirements and certifying the information provided is true. Remember, these are examples and not the full list of requirements. Additionally, the BDO understands that the information we are requesting may be proprietary and/or confidential. Applicants will be given a checkbox under each question to mark it as confidential. John, anything else to add?
I'm just going to underscore yet again what we've covered now around please take advantage of the early window. And I guess here's the rule of thumb that we would suggest. If you have never applied for a grant in Texas, so just the specific Texas requirements Aaron mentioned, if you have never applied for a grant in Texas and you have not yet pursued registration for BEAD in another state, I mean, if you have done both of those things, you know Texas requirements, you know the BEAD requirements in general, perhaps it would be okay to not take advantage of the early window. But if both those things apply to you, we would strongly recommend it, just because when you get into these things, you'll have questions. And we really, really strongly suggest take advantage of that early window.
Thanks, John. So now that we have reviewed what will be requested of applicants, let's go through how to submit Forms 1 and 2. The link to be provided on the BDO website will take you to the BEAD application portal landing page. Here you will be given two options, register or log in. If you did not participate in the BEAD challenge process, you will have to register for access to the portal. If you registered for the BEAD challenge process, you will not have to re-register. Your login information will be the exact same, and if you forgot your password, you can reset your password or sign in with email. If you are registering for the first time, you will need to complete this About You form. The BDO will request your organization's name, a link to the organization's website, primary contact name and information, type of organization, the employee identification number, FCC registration number, and the address. This is the view that you will see once you are ready to log into the portal and begin working on your Forms 1 and 2. All applicants will see this whenever they have registered and been granted access, or if they are logging back in from the BEAD challenge process. After registering and logging in, you will enter the portal and arrive at the landing page. Here you can see your team, summary of applications submitted, organization profile, and overall information regarding your organization and pending applications. Note that you can add team members underneath the Team tab. Other team members should not register via the Registration tab. Rather, they should be invited via the lead applicant. If you have added team members during the challenge process, they will have access to the application portal as well. To navigate to pre-registration, select Apply for BEAD on the far left side of the screen, then select Pre-registration. Or you can click the blue Start button that's available on the landing page. If you have any questions or issues accessing the site, please contact our help desk at txhelpdesk@ready.net. After selecting Start, Form 1 will open up. On the bottom right, there will be options to move to the next section, as well as to save the application if you need to stop work and come back later. And here is the view of Form 2. Applicants can see which section they are working on by looking at the top of the form and on the side. As you work through each section, green check marks will be added to show which sections have been completed. Once ready to submit, applicants will be able to scroll through and review the entire application. After all required fields have been filled out, the Submit Pre-registration button will turn blue and you will be able to submit. After submitting, applicants will receive a confirmation email. And I do want to note just ahead of time, if any required information is left out, the Submit Pre-registration button will not let you go through. Like, it just will not allow you to submit your application. As a reminder, there will be multiple webinars in the coming weeks to continue covering the subgrantee selection process. And here is our schedule. You will have to register individually for each webinar series. Registering for one webinar does not automatically register you for the next webinar. Moving forward, we encourage you to attend the remaining subgrantee selection process webinars, submit a response for the project area unit request for information by March 20th at 2 p.m., and submit Forms 1 and 2 by April 4th. To stay up to date with all things BEAD subgrantee selection, we encourage you to register for upcoming webinars and stay up to date with the Texas BDO newsletter and website. The BDO also hosts our industry roundtable on the last Tuesday of every month at 3 p.m. and our local government roundtable on the first Thursday of every month at 10 a.m. We encourage you all to attend and share your questions there as well. Additional information about what we've shared today can be found on the website, including the initial proposal, Volume 2, as well as recordings of the previous webinars. Again, additional information and guidance on the forms for pre-registration will be available on the Texas BEAD application portal as a downloadable document. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pause and see if anyone has any questions. Please submit your questions in the chat. Because this is a recorded webinar, we are not going to be able to unmute you or take you off of or allow you to have access to your camera. So all questions should be submitted through the chat for us. And I see that there is a few. All right, if an applicant doesn't currently have a centralized master bidders list ID, how long does this process typically take to secure? It is a fairly quick process. It does range based off of the level of interest that we have. All of the information about how to get that master bidders list ID is available on the CPA website. I will note that that is not a required piece of information at this point in time. You can submit forms 1 and 2 without that identification. However, if you are awarded a grant, then you will have to register for an ID. Given Texas's strict restrictions prohibiting communication with applicants, when will the Form 3 guidance be published? Given applicants will likely have questions, when can applicants engage in a fulsome Q&A be allowed? Correct. So we do have pretty strict rules about what we are allowed to communicate to applicants. Our plan is to have Form 3 questions available along with the publishing of the NOFA. If we can get them out earlier, we absolutely will. Of course, all questions regarding the NOFA and the Form 3 questions has to be submitted through the specific Q&A process associated with any procurement, and then the BDO will publish a final list of questions and answers. What is the link to the portal? What a great question. If I could have someone from my team go ahead and share that link in the chat, that would be great. However, we are also updating the BDO BEAD webpage, and the link will be available on the webpage before the end of the day. Given the amount of time it typically takes to prepare a project-specific application, will a final FAQ be published at least a couple of weeks before the Form 3 applications are due? Yes, a frequently asked questions document will be provided along with the Q&A responses associated with the NOFA. So all documentation that is required for or that could potentially help any applicants will be available but well before the deadline to submit applications. However, once that Q&A and the FAQ is released, all technical support and programmatic support will be completed. When will the pre-registration guidelines be available? We are hoping to have them available before the end of the day. Sometimes it may take about 12 hours for the portal to fully update, so tomorrow at the latest. Will the portal indicate with red if a response is required or optional? Yes, it is marked with a little red asterisk next to the question to indicate that it is a required field. Additionally, if you do have any questions that you feel are too long to put into the chat, you are more than welcome to email us at broadband@cpa.texas.gov with your full question, and we will, of course, respond to you as soon as we can. Where will the webinar be posted? Also, will it be posted this week? We are trying our best. We will try our best to get this webinar posted before the end of the week. Unfortunately, our outreach coordinator is out of the office this week, and so there might be a little bit of a delay, but we should have it posted on the BDO website, on the BEAD webpage, by early next week. So by the 17th is when it should be posted. If you are having trouble locating where these recordings are, go to the IIJA BEAD webpage specifically on the BDO website, and then there's a drop-down box with a table showing all of our previous recordings and the links to register. We don't see the pre-registration option on the dashboard landing page. Yes, so let me just double check real quick. The link that's provided in the chat should take you to the landing page, and there's a big red button that says register, and then right below it is a white button with red outline that says log in. If you have not registered for access to the portal at all, you can go ahead and click that register button, which will get you into the queue to have access to the portal. However, once you log in, the forms 1 and 2 will not be available until March 17th. If an ISP previously filed for another Texas BDO grant cycle, will the same registration credentials work for BEAD? Just to clarify, if an ISP has previously worked with the BDO and logged into our Salesforce system, that login information is not transferred over into this platform. You'll have to re-enter all of that information. However, if you participated in the challenge process, a lot of the information for Form 1 will transfer over automatically from the challenge portal. But no, we did not take any previously submitted information for other grant programs hosted through the BDO and associated it with any account or any specific provider. Will applicants be able to identify consultants as users in the application portal? Yes, if they are a member of your team, you are more than welcome to include them in your team, grant them access to your portal, and they'll be able to work on the applications with you. So to clarify, if an ISP participated in the challenge process, those login credentials and data will be ported into the BEAD application Form 1. That is correct. Given the recording will not be posted possibly until the 17th, could you give us a bit more time to take a screenshot of the timelines in the first half of today's slide deck? Could you clarify, are you referring to the timeline for pre-registration or the timeline of events for subgrantee selection process as a whole, BEAD? We have a lot of timelines overlapping each other right now. I will go ahead and go back to one of our timelines right here. So the other timelines that were made available during this presentation have already been presented in our previous webinars, and they have not changed. This is this is a new timeline, however, that outlines initial pre-registration period, the extended pre-registration period, and then the open application period. And again, this information will be made available on our website before the end of the day. It is going through an update right now. Pre-registration curing is only available if pre-registration is filled out prior to April 4th, or curing will be allowed through May 14th. Curing will only be allowed if Forms 1 and 2 are submitted between March 17th and April 4th. So April 4th, 5 p.m., if that application form is not submitted, it may not be eligible for curing. However, from May 5th from April 5th through May 14th, the BDO may choose to provide additional curing. Say only 3 people submitted curing during March 17th and April 4th, and we feel we have the capacity to provide additional time, then we may extend that curing period. However, if the application forms 1 and 2 are submitted on May 15th or later, then absolutely no curing at all. All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending this webinar. Just once again, I am going to put up our email address. If you have any longer questions questions that you did not feel comfortable putting into the chat, please feel free to give us an email at broadband@cpa.texas.gov, and we'll be sure to get you a response as soon as possible. Thank you all so much for coming. Have a great rest of your day.